When I first watched Rogue One, it took me a while to like Andor. After watching Andor, Jynn says, I never had the luxury of political opinions. And I remember thinking, I'm like, girl, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, what luxury are you?
Your entire childhood has been political. I remember when Westmore went on The Breakfast Club and he talked about, like, you might say that you don't do politics, but politics are gonna do you, bro.
It's also like the luxury is to not have to be involved in politics.
Right.
Like, that's the luxury. Whether you're in tune with the politics or not, they're having an active impact on your life. And so actually the work and the labor is being involved in the political work. It's the privileged people who get to not look at it and not care about it and not worry about it. I love what Andor says to her. We don't all have the luxury of deciding when and where we care about this.
Yes.
He says, suddenly the rebellion is real for you, but I've been in it since I was 6 years old. Crazy Stupid Podcast.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If this is your first time watching, we'd love it if you could hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell so that you are aware of when we post things.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Crazy Stupid Podcast. My name is Esther.
And I'm Adrian.
And today we are here to review our rewatch of Rogue One post Andor.
You know what makes it the most sad for me? We're never going to see him again. There's all this tragedy that I've been feeling anytime I think about like rewatching Andor or rewatching Rogue One. It's this idea of like, this is it for Andor. Like, it's still sad, like really, really sad.
I think this emotion is good for us.
Oh, yeah.
I think that as a culture, we have lost this because so many things don't end now.
Yeah.
Even in Marvel, you know, they ended, and then they said multiverse, and now we know we're going to see all those. We're going to see all of them again.
Yeah.
Like, we know. So yeah, it makes me sad, but I'm also like, this is how you are meant to experience these things.
Yeah, I mean, even Warner Brothers was begging Christopher Nolan to come back and do more Batman movies, and he was like, no, I don't want to ruin that moment Christian Bale has at the end. You're
supposed to let this exist in a moment, in a period of time, and you can always go back and revisit the projects. But yes, the goodbye is a natural part of the process.
One thing that I was just thinking about, just with Andor ending, to me, this feels like the most positive I have seen the Star Wars fandom, generally speaking, in a long time.
Oh.
The shift that I'm seeing with like the reception from Andor and people wanting to go back and rewatch Rogue One and seeing how like Rogue One and Andor are at like top 3, top 2 most watched things on Disney Plus right now. Like, the momentum is clearly there. My algorithm for like at least a week since Andor finished just been filled with thoughts and opinions about the show. I'm not gonna lie, I missed that a little bit. I feel like I got a glimpse of it at the end of season 2 of Mandalorian, and then I don't think I have seen it like this since.
Into season 2 was the Luke
with Luke coming
cameo.
back. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
and I feel like the key is, I mean, listen, just make good stuff. I don't.
Yeah.
Like, make good Star Wars content.
It also feels like, at least with Andor and Rogue One, it felt like Disney was genuinely investing into this. Like, when you hear Tony Gilroy talk about like the conversations that he has with Kathleen Kennedy, it's like, oh, they were serious about wanting to make a good television show that happened to be Star Wars. I don't know if I always get that zeal. I don't always think I'm getting that vibe with some of the other shows. Like, when you go, listen, I had a great time with Obi-Wan. When you go back and watch some of those scenes, you're like, dang, this looks kind of low budget, bro. Like, they're not putting as much effort into it. Like, the scope feels very small, and I get it. There's only so much room you can put into it. But Andor feels like one of the very rare TV shows where the scope of the story does not feel limited by the Disney Plus TV show model. And I think that's what made it different.
I understand for season 2, after what I assume was a success of season 1. But season 1 already felt like it had that type of investment.
Yeah.
And so I am curious, like, what happened? Like, what were those conversations? What was the pitch?
Yes.
Because, like, coming out of Rogue One, I personally was not like, you know what I want? I want a show about Cassian Andor.
Not at all.
I didn't really care. Matter of fact, like, I mean, it was sad when he died the first time I watched it. But it was much more sad this time.
Rewatch the first time, it was like collective sad and all of these people were gone.
Yeah.
Everyone else is like, oh, it's sad. Sorry. Cassian. No.
It's like, it's not like after I first watched Rogue One, I had like a huge attachment to his character specifically.
Yeah.
So it's like, I am curious to know what that conversation was, but whatever it was, I'm glad it worked.
And it's wild. I remember when the first trailer dropped, I remember putting it in my group chat with my boys, and I was like, hey, yo, hold on.
Something's different. You could already tell something's different.
This was tough, bro.
I feel like part of it is there's just always going to be limitations when so much of the content is like filling in these small gaps in the overall story, especially if you're doing it with the same characters that we've already seen, right? So like, yeah, the Obi-Wan show, you can't really do too much because there's like already all this canon that you can't mess with. And if you do too much, then it starts to be like, so why didn't they talk about, it like doesn't add up anymore. As they keep making more and more content, they're filling in, it feels like smaller and smaller chunks of time.
Yes.
And so it's like, yeah, there's not much wiggle room there. But when you do something like this, where you take a step way back from the characters that are at the core of most of the Star Wars content that we've gotten, because of that, there's actually just so much that you can do, because there's a lot that wasn't explained. Like, yes, how did the Rebel Alliance build up? How did it begin? I gotta say, rewatching, okay, the whole movie is fun, but like the whole movie, I'm waiting for the last act.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it is this. You can see Tony Gilroy's hand imprinted on this film. Build up, and then the last acts of the film.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's so true.
And that's how it is in both seasons of Andor.
That's so true. I also have to say, though, I do think it's one of two things, or maybe both. Either his craft has progressed a lot since Rogue One, or he was just given much more leeway with Andor, or both. Because yes, I love Rogue One, and I 100% enjoy it, but I think you see like the beginnings of his ability to build up that tension in that last act of Rogue One, but it's not the same.
I'll give you that.
I don't think it's the same as the way that it felt watching that prison break.
I saw, and some of it is the tone as well. Yes,
that's also true.
I saw a tweet that I was cracking up, where they were like, watching the end of Andor, then Rogue One, and then A New Hope rocks, because the plot and the aesthetics are basically seamless. But everyone in the galaxy gets way stupider and dumber over the course of maybe a week.
No. And younger. They all age backwards, about true. 8 years or however long it's been. I don't know when the Rogue One came out. So we meet Jynn, and I feel like when we meet Jynn, she's in a similar place as Cassian was at the beginning of season 1, when she's talking to Saul Guerrera, and he's like, so you're okay with the Empire just taking over everything and the Imperial flag waving over the galaxy, or whatever he said. And she was like, it's not a problem if you don't look up. Like, again, this idea of like, I don't like what's happening, but I have this mentality that if I just keep my head down and worry about me, I don't have to feel the impact of it. My life can go on as normal. And I love what Andor says to her. We don't all have the luxury of deciding when and where we care about this.
Yes.
He says, suddenly the rebellion is real for you, but I've been in it since I was 6 years old. His entire life, he had been engaging in acts against the rebellion in small ways. And so that statement makes sense coming from him. But I appreciated that a lot, and I also appreciated her reception of that message, because I do think that you come across that mentality a lot from people who are newer to a conversation and newer to a movement and don't understand or don't like the way that things have been going. And they're very vocal about that. And people who are like, no, like, you've been privileged enough to not have to look this way. And now something very personal has come to your front door, and now you're in on it. And cool, we're glad that you are here, but understand that like you're just getting here.
It's so interesting you said that, because this is I kind of had a similar point there, where when I first watched Rogue One, it took me a while to like Andor. And I was, Jynn Erso being the main character, I immediately sort of gravitate toward her. And then the decision to take out Galen Erso, I was never on board with that. And initially I was very much like, in agreement with the things that she was saying. After watching Andor, it's like a complete 180 paradigm shift for me. Earlier in the episode, Jynn says, I never had the luxury of political opinions. And I remember sitting thinking, I'm like, girl, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, what luxury are you?
What are you, luxury of political opinions? This is what I remember when Westmore went on The Breakfast Club and he talked about, like, listen, you might say that you don't do politics, but politics are gonna do you, bro. Mm-hmm. And Jynn, I'm thinking, like, what are you talking about? Your entire story, your entire childhood has been political. You were on the run from an imperialist government because your father, his intelligence was being exploited to create a weapon that would create a permanent state of that style of government. Huh? It's just, yo.
It's also like the luxury is to not have to be involved in politics.
Right.
Like, that's the luxury. For most people, like Westmore was saying, whether you're in tune with the politics or not, they're having an active impact on your life. And so actually the work and the labor is being involved in the political work. It's the privileged people who get to not look at it and not care about it and not worry about it. So even the logic of her statement to me just doesn't make sense. I think it just shows the limited scope.
Sure, 100%.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to warm up to her this watch. I'm not gonna lie, because then in other scenes, she's equating. She doesn't say it, but the implication is her sort of putting the Rebel Alliance and the Empire on the same side, because in her own experience, she feels the Rebel Alliance has caused her the most pain.
I mean, she even says to Andor something like, you're just like a stormtrooper then.
Yes,
when he says
like,
well, I was following orders.
What? I'm sorry. That's crazy to me.
Yeah. It's like she just says, I think it's just like what you were saying. To her, it's like, well, both of these people were trying to get my dad. And so I take issue with that. And to her, all of this was just about her father. None of it was about this larger cause. I think maybe until she sees the message, and then even then probably until he is no longer alive, and it's like, okay, well, he gave his life for this thing. Now I have to carry this mantle.
And maybe that's credit to the writing, because after Andor starts giving his opinions about that encounter, you see that she receives it. So right. I give that credit to the writing there, because I think it's starting to click that, like, yeah, this is your dad, but to everybody else, he's been helping build a planet destroying machine.
Yeah, like, he's a major threat, and he's a major asset for the Empire. So it makes sense tactically to take him out.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about the character arc that Saul Guerrera has been on since we've been getting more scenes with him. His character fascinates me with Star Wars because, like, who he represents, that person that is in the fight, they don't always get to live as long as him. And to see, like, the decline and, like, the mental and emotional deterioration that Saul is experiencing, like, he's paranoid, there's spies everywhere, he's not running like a very well-oiled, operation there to some degree. His zeal and his motive is still there, but I do feel like there's just a little bit of tragedy with his character, because you can just see the weight of what the Empire and the toll the Empire has put on him. Yeah. And yeah, he could have done a little bit better job of, like, coalition building. But I think characters like that are just kind of necessary for stories like this, because it kind of shows you that, like, these are still real humans that are sacrificing a lot of themselves to be committed to something greater. And that toll is something that I feel like Saul Guerrera exemplifies so well.
To me, I feel like a lot of the weight that he's carrying is a result of his insistence on working alone. Mm-hmm. I understand why the Rebel Alliance that is trying to build something that is joining together. Yeah. It's not like this is like one group of people that's trying to take ownership of the entire movement. It's various groups of people that are deciding to join together to try to make something bigger. I understand why they would be so frustrated with the person who not only insists on working alone, but also refuses to cooperate in times of like urgency, right? Like when we saw at the end of Andor, when they're trying to talk to me, they're like, we are getting important intel, and what you have going on over there, your operation is key. And for him to still not cooperate it's
frustrating.
It doesn't just harm him, like you're getting in the way of everybody.
Yeah.
I think there is tragedy to his character, and a lot of it is, like you were saying, from the thing that he is fighting against, the Empire. I also think some of it is self-inflicted.
Yeah. Hey guys, so we just want to pause for a second to talk a little bit about an early screening that we got from Apple TV about a new film that's coming out on May 23rd called Fountain of Youth. Fountain of Youth is a film that stars John Krasinski, you probably know him from The Office as Jim, and the Academy Award winning Natalie Portman. Their goal is to go on a global heist to find a mythological fountain of youth. They have to use their knowledge of history to follow clues on an epic adventure that will change their lives and possibly lead them to immortality. I don't want to go into spoilers, but if you are in for a sort of adventure, very witty humor, there's some heartfelt moments, this is a movie that you should probably check out. So it'll be on Apple TV on May 23rd. So be sure to check that out.
I want to talk about the speech that Jynn gives to the council. So she says, if you give way now, you surrender the galaxy to an eternity of submission. And basically that whole conversation that they're having is about like the odds that they're up against, right? Yeah. And it reminded me of this thing that I've been hearing a lot of people say in a lot of the social circles that I've been in recently that are about like trying to fight back against the Trump administration. One of the key things that they've been saying is like, when you're up against fascism, one of the first rules is like, do not comply in advance. That's kind of like at the heart of what Jynn is saying in that moment, because all of them are saying, if it's this bad, then we need to hide, or it's, that can't be that bad. This can't be true. Let's sit and wait. And she's basically saying like, like we can't be 100% certain, but like you can't comply in advance because every single time that you choose to do that, because you're like, we might lose, we don't know what will happen, you're giving more and more leeway, and you're thinking there's going to be a moment when it'll be sure enough and it'll be certain enough and you can fight back. But the truth is, all you're doing is giving up each opportunity that you have to fight back against this. What we see happen is when this small group of rebels chooses to go against the rules and go against the grain and fight back, not only do they fight back and succeed in their mission, but their decision to not comply galvanizes other people in the rebellion to join in too. And that's the purpose of not complying. You need somebody to start the resistance. You need somebody to take the risk and say, we are not going to bow down to this. And when one person does it, it makes it easier for other people to feel more confident not complying. When one university says, nah, you're not going to take that. You're not going to do that to us. We're taking you to court. Then it makes it more likely that other universities following behind them who get put under the same pressure will say, well, we already know what we can do. We saw somebody else do it. Yeah. So I really appreciated that speech in that moment, and the way that the film has kind of showed us the importance of like, you can't comply in advance. You have to be ready to resist every single time that you are put under threat.
Yeah, you have to be brave enough to build momentum. We talked a little bit about this with Dedra. LOL.
I'll never make that mistake again.
We're laughing because we made that clip talking about Dedra, and then the actress who plays Dedra fact checked us on one of our videos.
Nah, she didn't fact check us. She corrected us on the pronunciation of the character's name. And it was really me. We're saying us, but it was me. I was in there loud and proud, Deidre. And you know what it is? I blackified that name. That's what really happened there. That's like one of the most blackest auntie moments I think I've had. Deidre. That's her name.
We talked a lot about like how the overcommitment that Dedra had for the Empire. The same thing with Cyril. But we also see with director Krennic in this episode as well, this pursuit of going up the ranks in the Empire. Star Wars has shown us the last couple of seasons with Andor and with Rogue One that you are trying to go up the ranks in a system that doesn't value you as an individual. You are a commodity. You are collateral. You are expendable. And I feel like because director Krennic was so good at his job, I think there was a little bit of arrogance in him that he believed he could outlive a person like Dedra. He could outlive a person like Cyril. But I feel like I really appreciated how his story goes out with him, the Death Star coming in and being the thing that brings his demise, is that unless you are Emperor Palpatine himself, everyone in this system is expendable. We see it in the last film of the originals. Vader was even expendable. He was willing to cast him aside to take Luke, an incredible antagonist that I feel like I hope people were paying attention when it comes to his character, you know. Yeah.
And again, he went out at the hands of something that he helped create.
We've talked a lot about like the Star Wars allegory and like people missing the point and all of that. Bro, I ain't gonna lie, yo, we might be cooked.
Why?
Okay. Andor has been very well received. Rogue One is getting a lot of momentum again. I saw a lot of people after Andor say, man, after the events of Andor, man, I really hate the Empire now. What? What? I'm looking at some of the comments here and they're like, how is it just now that you are not understanding who the Empire is and that they are morally bankrupt? We've seen them use the Death Star before. There's comic stories of them doing atrocious things. There's stories in Rebels that you can look to. Stories like Bad Batch that you can look to. I'm so concerned. I think there's also another group of Star Wars fans that feel like the Empire could be a necessary evil for a beneficial end result. And this is why I say that, because I saw people online saying, well, you guys say all these negative things about the Empire, but the New Republic was horrible, which is true. The New Republic, part of them falling was because fascism was still there. Like, that is still the underlying issue. Like, I remember even way back in the first season of Mando, when the Imperial commander comes and he tries to take Grogu, and he starts essentially appealing to whatever version of economic prosperity that he claims the Empire was bringing to the galaxy. And I think that resonated with some fans. I genuinely do think, like, yeah, ends justifying the means here. I feel like they will probably say, yeah, the Empire was bad, but the New Republic wasn't any better.
I think that whole idea of ends justifies the means, it only works for most people. There's some people I'm sure this is not true for, but I think it only works for most people because of the way that they are intaking the information about what's actually happening.
Yeah.
The ends justifying the means, it depends on how bad you think the means were. Right?
Okay, that's true.
So if you're not receiving it in a very straightforward way that actually puts on display how terrible it is, then it's a lot easier for you to say that.
I also do feel like the resonating that I'm seeing from fans is that they've bought into the idea of like government is inefficient, like it cannot work, it cannot function. And they look to the New Republic and say, yeah, it wasn't working. They look to the Senate and they say it wasn't working. But these things weren't working because of Palpatine. I feel like that needs to be mentioned, right? Because I think the appeal that some fans see in Palpatine and the Empire is that they're able to make concise decisions without the political bureaucracy being like, I don't know, like a block in the road, like something that gets in the way of getting things done. I can understand what leads them down to that thought process. I just always go back to the line that David Simon said. He talked about like how frustrating and dysfunctional democracy can be until you look at the alternative.
You have to come to terms with the reality that a government that actually functions as a voice for this many people will be a messy process.
Sure.
It cannot, by design, be as efficient as authoritarianism by design.
Yes.
The blocks are the point. The point is you go through all of these different processes and steps so that every step of the way there's an opportunity for an opposing voice to say something. The only reason why people right now are saying that they don't want that is because they think they are in alignment with the authoritarian government and what it is doing. And what many people are starting to find out is that they are in fact not.
Yeah.
That's why you're seeing these videos of Trump supporters and Trump voters coming out and being like, I didn't realize that he was going to do this.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that this was going to happen, because you thought you were in alignment with him and you're actually not. It's also that democracy is designed to work as a system wherein people are engaged in it. And the vast majority of us are not. And I'm not even like beyond voting, but like also a huge portion of people don't even vote.
Yeah.
But like democracy is actually designed to work as a system where like voting is like the bare minimum thing that you do. We're meant to be much more involved in all of it. Like, you're meant to be attending your town council meetings. You're meant to be talking to your local representatives. You're meant to be in constant communication with the system itself. That's how it's designed to work.
Yeah.
We went to this panel recently, and there was a member of the DC council on the panel. And one of the things that she said that was so it's going to stick with me. She was like, it's one thing to make decisions about a group of people that you know will harm them, that you never see. But it's another thing to look the people in the face and vote on it anyway. And she was advocating for people like, I mean, like, we're in DC, like there are organizers who show up at the Capitol when things are up for vote, and they go door to door and they knock on the offices of those representatives and those senators, and they look them in the face and they convince them, because it's a much different thing to sit in there and vote on a bill that you know is going to harm this nameless, faceless group of people.
Yeah.
Versus Sarah was just in my office yesterday and I looked her in the eye and she told me how it was going to hurt her. That's how it's supposed to work, but so many of us just don't do it. My very last point about Andor, I just wanted to say, just about Star Wars as a whole. One, it's just an extremely bold move to make a film like this and just kill all your characters. Like,
yo.
It's just a really bold thing to do.
I mean, even what they did with Vader, oh my God.
Yeah. But I feel like it drives home, and I think Andor really bolsters this too, that like Star Wars is a franchise about people making the ultimate sacrifice. And it's just a chain of people making the ultimate sacrifice, but just like Andor said, making it worth it.
Yeah.
We lose all those people on Ferrix. We lose all those people from Andor's home planet. We lose Luthen. We lose all those rebels in Andor in season 1 and 2. We lose all those rebels in Rogue One. Like, all of this, just a chain of people saying, I'm putting my life on the line for this thing in the hopes that eventually it's worth it.
I mean, even oh my God, the Vader scene. First and foremost, the door being jammed. The door is not jammed. That's Vader using the Force to block that. Terrifying. But secondly, you see the shift even in the gentleman that has the codes for the Death Star. He goes from open the door to, I know I'm not making out of here. Just take it. Something as simple as that. It's so impactful because it lands directly with the point that you're making. What they're fighting for is so above whatever they need individually. Like, the sacrifice is for something so much greater than themselves. You can't help but get choked up or get goosebumps and get emotional, you know. And with that, those are our thoughts for officially ending our thoughts on Andor and for Rogue One. Let us know what you all think. We love to hear the thoughts that you all have had with Andor. Thank you all for tuning in. We'd love to know what you all think. Let us know in the comment sections below, and we will see you all next time. Take care, everyone. Peace.